On today's episode of Locked On Lightning, I have Seth Kushner from the Block Party, the official podcast of the Tampa Bay Lightning, on today to discuss the expansion draft, the recent playoff run, all that fun stuff we go into. And great to have him on. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. Please give us a follow wherever wherever this show is available. As you can see, I'm already in the mood to talk about the Lightning today. I got a lot to dive into. And we also announce what the giveaway is. We have a new giveaway coming out. Earlier on in the season, we did Alex Killorn. We gave away a signed Alex Killorn Stanley Cup final champion puck. So we'll be giving away something else like that soon. So you have to listen in towards the end of the episode to find out what it is. So keep in mind all of that. And then as well as I talk about what the Lightning could do, or at least keep in mind, because we have no idea what the expansion draft's going to do. What's going to happen with that? Who's going to get taken? Most likely, fingers crossed, it's going to be Andre Palat, but I think they're going to take Yanni Gourde. Hopefully not, though. We talk about that, and I allude to possibly the Lightning reuniting with an old player of theirs. So all that and more in today's episode. So let's play that music. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's having a great week. On today's episode, like I said at the top of the show before we played that music, we have Seth Kushner from Lightning Block Party on the show today to discuss recent cup runs, where this team is in NHL history, over the last, I guess we could say 20 years, because, if you're talking about where this team ranks all time, then that's like a 4-part episode kind of thing that, I think we could dive into at some point in this off season. But we have headlines and storylines that we need to get to, and we have business that we need to attend to as well. Lightning have the expansion draft coming up in a couple of days, tomorrow actually. So Seth and I talk about that as well. And we also are going to announce a new giveaway that we're doing. So make sure to listen towards the end of the episode and follow the instructions on social media. I will also reiterate them as we go along, but definitely do that as well. Don't want to miss out on this giveaway. This is, the last giveaway we did, just to kind of put in perspective. We did a raffle, I guess you could call it, for a signed, autographed, verified, authentic Alex Killorn signed Stanley Cup puck. That was a great giveaway. The enthusiasm you guys showed towards that was fantastic, and I hope you bring the same effort. Actually, you know what? I don't hope. I know, because you guys bring it harder than anybody else does out of all the fan bases in the NHL. So before we get into the conversation with Seth, let's talk about one of today's sponsors, and that is RockAuto.com. The best thing about RockAuto.com is that you can save time and money when using RockAuto.com. Why choose to spend $30, $50, and even 100% more for the same parts for your chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. And we are back. We're going to bring Seth on in just a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the expansion draft rounds up. I was talking with Locked On Rangers host John Chick for a crossover earlier today about that, how, for maybe some of you new listeners, back in the day, I used to work at NHL.com alongside Locked On Rangers host John Chick. So we know how crazy it is. We were there when the Golden Knights had their expansion draft, so we know how crazy it is and how unpredictable the draft is. We could be stressing right now about how the Lightning are going to lose Yanni Gourde, because I think the general consensus, and I believe, if you're not in agreement, then you haven't watched enough hockey games over the last 2 years, especially to know what kind of player Yanni Gourde is. Not saying that Andre Palat is lesser of a player, but Yanni Gourde has really blossomed into a fantastic hockey player. He is what I like to call, and I've been using this term quite a bit lately, as that he is a Swiss Army knife player. He's one of those players where he's so dynamic, he could do a ton of things for you, and whatever you ask for him. If you need to go out, if you need him to go out there and play physical, he could do that. If you need him to go out there and score goals and generate offense, he could do that. He could do whatever you need him to do. If he could even fight now and then, even though he's not one of the biggest guys on the ice, so you really don't want him fighting, but he's still a fantastic player. And before we talk with Seth, I also just want to mention, because I didn't get a chance to mention this on yesterday's episode, but for those of you who've maybe missed, the Lightning made a deal this past week with the New York Rangers, and that's why I was talking with John Chick, is they made a deal. They exchanged Barclay Goodrow for a 2022 7th round pick, which, in my opinion, I believe the Lightning could have asked for a little bit more. I would have been more happier if they got a 6th. I don't think the Rangers were willing to go higher than a 7th. I think what it really came down to as well, and what the scenario and the situation is going to happen with some of these players on this team, especially Blake Coleman, is that the Lightning don't have the room. They don't have the room to dish out the money. And why? Because they're going to have to pay Barclay Goodrow. They were going to have to pay him. There's no doubt about it. And so why not at least get some assets in the Lightning? And I've said it multiple times on this show, are in desperate need for some draft picks. So, we get into that with Seth as well. So without further ado, here's my discussion with Seth Kushner of Lightning Block Party. So we'll be kind of continuing what we've been doing over the past couple of weeks, just been discussing the Lightning repeating as Stanley Cup champions. And here on today's show to further that conversation with me is Seth Kushner from the Block Party podcast, the official podcast of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Seth, thanks for joining us on today's show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Adam. I just want to let you know I do not do every podcast I'm invited on. So there was something about your message that drew me in. So thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time. And so, on today's show, where, like I just stated, we're going to talk about the season, playoffs, and then obviously the unprotected list that was dropped yesterday. We're recording this on Monday, the 19th. So why don't we take a step back? Expectations are off the bat for this season. On Locked On Lightning here, what we do is we hope for the best and assume the worst, regardless of what the previous outcomes were. So for us here on Locked On Lightning, we were basically assuming that the Lightning were going to get close, but not close enough to repeating. So probably an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, and that's probably it. So what were your expectations on this team coming into this season?
Well, it's funny because, now that I'm reflecting on it, I don't think I had expectations. Now, if you want to talk about my expectations before last season, they were to win the Stanley Cup, or I thought that, they were going to have to break the team up or get rid of Cooper or something. I thought that there was a lot riding on the line when they won it in the bubble. So because they won the Stanley Cup, I was just kind of going into this year, Kucherov not playing for the whole season, but having Stamkos. I just kind of took it game by game. I mean, I didn't think that this team's definitely going to repeat. I never even thought about repeating until probably halfway through the season, because it's so hard to win a Stanley Cup. So to put yourself in a position to go, we're just going to do it again, I wasn't there. Mostly because also I was only watching the Lightning's division this year. I didn't know what was going on with the Canadian division or Colorado or Connor McDavid. Like, I wasn't watching a lot of these guys play. So it was more just like, I know I want to make sure that the Lightning are good enough to win another Stanley Cup, and then they can beat anybody. And I kind of saw that throughout the year. Then they really turned it up in the playoffs with their defense. So, I didn't have expectations. I just was so happy they got their monkey off the back in the bubble year by winning the cup that I was happy no matter what.
And what was your state of mind afterwards? Because there was a good enough amount of criticism to where I spoke about it on this show as well, is that a lot of people, after winning the cup in the bubble, a lot of people were saying, oh, this isn't a legitimate championship, but you know what? A championship is a championship, regardless of what, the standards are to be met. I mean, even Gary Bettman, who is probably one of the most controversial figures in the game of hockey today, even said that this was probably one of the toughest cups to win. Are you in that boat as well, I assume?
Yeah, absolutely. I would put myself in that boat before I even knew what was happening. And
Yeah.
I have mental health issues. So if you're talking about these guys couldn't see their families, couldn't go anywhere, had to sit in a room, think they get done with hockey, then they just have to sit in the room till they play hockey again. Like, people don't understand that takes a toll on you. It takes a toll being away. So then I talked to guys this year, Barclay Goodrow. I talked to Brian Boyle. Goodrow was there. He addressed it. Somebody called him out on Twitter saying it was a Mickey Mouse Cup. Brian Boyle went off. He was on, I think, the
Yeah.
Panthers last year. He went off on people that said it was an easy cup to win. So yeah, I don't think that holds any water. I don't think we take anybody seriously that says that. Every player, whether they're with the Lightning or not, knows how hard it was to be in that bubble. You saw Tuukka Rask went home. The Capitals got their coach fired because it said they treated it like a vacation. The Lightning had to be completely disciplined to win that cup last year, and it by far tougher than any other season to win the cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And that speaks to the leadership of the core players on this team. Stamkos, Hedman, especially, who was really one of the big contributing factors in that cup run last year, ultimately winning the Conn Smythe as well. And John Cooper. I mean, I said on my show this past week that John Cooper, I think even now, regardless if you want to include the repeat or not, is still probably one of the most underrated coaches in the NHL today. And I think probably one of the most underappreciated coaches, considering what has transpired with this team over the last 3 years. You go from a collapse, and then you go to a very tough situation with a worldwide pandemic. And then you have the obstacle to face after that in trying to repeat. And even then, with the frequency of the schedule, that is just tough within itself. And what have you heard from the players, since you do have those normal interactions with these players? What have they said about Coach Cooper that has really stuck out to you the most?
Let's see. I only asked one player, I think, this year about Coach Cooper. And I asked Tyler Johnson, and I said, is Coach Cooper any different? And honestly, I don't think a lot of these guys want to talk about their coach because they don't know what they're going to say. It's like a personality interview. So they don't want to
Right.
say anything that could get this. So I try to stay away from that. But Tyler Johnson said he's the same guy. I think Cooper maybe he's not going to get the respect around the league and be underrated because people now look at this team and they go, this is a super team. It's got Vazzy, it's got everybody. And they don't understand, Coop's been here for a long time. When we were getting knocked out in the first round, we were getting knocked out in the final, we to have to go through this whole thing. So to now see as a complete body of work, see that he's taken this team to 3 Stanley Cups and winning 2. I mean, I don't really see how you could take anything away from this guy at this point, but that's fine. If people want to give the players all the credit, I give Coop a lot of credit for putting that third line together.
Yeah.
I interviewed Julian BriseBois last week, and he said originally he wanted Barclay Goodrow to play center. So who knows if Cooper would have went with that? Who knows if that third line comes to be? So I give him a lot of credit for this team winning 2 cups.
Yeah, I mean, whichever way you look at it, you got to give them credit just for the fact that this team came in, especially in this playoff run, and you saw it in every series. They weren't really against the wall at all, except for Game 7 in the Islanders series. So that really speaks to the preparation that Cooper had in the practices and leading up to these series, just how well the team was prepared to face against these guys. I mean, talent alone, they were still leagues better than most of these teams that they faced, but you still got to chalk it up to the coaching staff as well. And kind of just to go back to, since we kind of mentioned it, the frequency of the schedule, how much did this weigh heavily on the players throughout the season?
I mean, this schedule is crazy, and it's tough to remember what the schedule was like before all this. But I mean, I'm watching the NBA finals now, and they're getting 3 days in between their games,
Yeah.
and they were doing. I think they even made the guys play a back-to-back in the bubble last year. I mean, it is it's insane. These guys, I know. They wanted to wrap up the final, and they wanted to have the parade, and they wanted to go home. They wanted to go back to wherever. Pat Maroon wanted to go to St. Louis. They were over it. It had been 2 straight years of playing hockey, being locked up. Things finally started getting loosened up here in about March. And, I think they were ready to just go home and take a real legit break from everything. And that's what they're doing right now. half of them are unprotected. So who knows how they're handling that? But yeah, I think they're happy to be away from hockey for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's true. That's a good point you brought up, that these guys are just kind of looking to unwind. You saw it. I think it kind of stuck out to me when Stamkos posted something like literally the day after with the sun rising up with the cup, and you could just see it in his body language as he was just standing there. It was just like a weight was lifted off their shoulders, as if maybe like this 10-month track race is finally over, and you could just kind of exhale after that. And that's what a lot of people don't. And kind of going back to the legitimacy of this is that a lot of people don't realize this team won 2 championships in the span of 10 months while going through COVID protocol, playing pretty much every other day, dealing with this crazy schedule to where you're going, earlier on in the season, I spoke with Pat Maroon just a little bit through Twitter, and they were going into that series with Columbus. And then he says, we're going to go play Dallas after this, but I don't know. This is when Dallas was having their COVID issues. And just like, it's amazing how this team was able to kind of just stick to what they needed to do and just, prepare when they needed to prepare pretty much on the fly.
I think winning the cup in the situation they wanted in last year, I think that prepared them a lot for this year, because nothing would be worse. Remember, they were in the bubble the longest with the Stars. I think the Stars didn't they stay in Edmonton the whole time?
Yeah.
So the Lightning had to travel and all that stuff. So I felt like that there's no way to prepare you for a season than what they went through last year. So and they showed it. They're ready.
Yeah, they were just, even some of the younger guys on this team kind of just fell in line. One of the guys that really stuck out to me, that really impressed me throughout the season, was Ross Colton. He had limited play here and there throughout the regular season, but once the playoffs showed up, he was ready to go, especially in, that decisive game in the Stanley Cup final, scoring that one goal. Just his cool, calm, collective presence in front of the net to be able to just tap that in and not get crazy with an open net there. And that really goes back to the leadership on this team. But who has really impressed you throughout this team throughout the entire season? Whether it's someone that came in last year, on this show we talk a lot about Blake Coleman. If Blake Coleman leaves, we're going to be very heartbroken here. So
he's going to be gone. So
yeah, I know. Unfortunately, he's going to leave. But he's one of those guys where this team is so the depth is crazy, and that's the thing that you hate to see, especially when expansion draft and cap issues, is that if we're talking about a normal NHL season, not to quote LeBron James when he was with the Heat, but, this team could possibly win not 3, maybe 4. I mean, not in a row, but over the span of maybe 7 years, we're talking about a potential dynasty. But I think within the parameters of what the cap is now, especially since 2004, is it safe to say to call this team a dynasty?
I would, yeah. I think if you look, I think they might have to, maybe win another cup at some point down the road for it to be an official dynasty that everybody remembers, because they might just think the Lightning won 1 cup because they won them so close together. I don't know what people are going to remember. They might just remember the sweep with Columbus, but I would say this is a dynasty. I root for some Chicago teams, the White Sox and the Bears, and I know how hard it is to win championships. And so the fact that the Lightning are there almost every year, and when they're not, it's the biggest deal ever, like when they got dropped by Columbus. So yeah, I think that's a dynasty when you are just in the thick every year, and that's what the Lightning have been. To answer your question, I'll just speak on some things that impressed me about certain players, because I'm impressed by a ton of guys. I love Ross Colton. I interviewed him. The thing about him that people are forgetting is that he scored in his first game this year. So they were mixing in some guys at the time. They called up ABB. He played, then they went with Ross Colton the next game, and Ross scored, and he kind of ended up sticking around after that and really gelling with Patty Maroon and Matthew Joseph. So I thought that was big. I think the way Tyler Johnson handled everything this season, people forget these guys are human beings. And this guy was put on waivers twice, and he still had to go out there and compete. And people were all over him this season. And he showed up during the playoffs. So I think I want to give credit to Blake Coleman, to Goodrow. They don't win the cup without those guys. So you have to look at Steven Stamkos, who played every single playoff game this year, who people were on this guy saying that he couldn't do it and that he never did it. And then he was able to do that. You got to give credit to Kucherov, who was hurt. He didn't just show up. He was hurt. He had to rehab all year. So, you can go on and on and on. Hedman, McDonough playing injured. It's everything about these guys impresses me. and that's why I'm a fan. So it's hard to whittle it down, but I love everything about this team.
Yeah, I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's the first line or the last defensive pairing, every guy on this team, you saw it. I mean, there was times, on the ice this year where Eric Chernak really didn't do much of anything, and then he completely turns it on in the playoffs, which was insane. And yeah, everybody on this team has had a job to do, and they did it, which was, and I really think that last year's playoff run really prepped them, like you said, for this playoff run. And to really kind of shift gears now going forward, now the Lightning have some very difficult decisions to make. Well, they already made the decisions. By the time this episode drops, everybody will have known that the protected list came out the other day. They traded Barclay Goodrow to the Rangers for a draft pick. Hate to see him leave, but I'm actually up in New York. And I was telling friends of mine as well that are big Ranger fans that you're going to love Barclay Goodrow.
Oh, absolutely.
You're gonna
How
love
could you not?
You're gonna love him, and he's gonna contribute. He's one of those guys where I kind of classify him, Blake Coleman, and Mitchell Stevens into the Swiss Army knife players of this team, especially where Yanni Gourde as well. They're those guys where they have a certain dynamic to their game to where you ask them to do something and they're very capable of going out there and doing it. And you've seen them do it before. And Barclay Goodrow is one of those guys. Were you shocked when you heard the news that he got traded, or did you think, like, especially with cap issues or, either way, where you were going to lose Barclay Goodrow at a certain point?
Yeah. I mean, I went into this offseason, I went into this year knowing that there was absolutely no way that Coleman was coming back, because I think Coleman's going to get paid like a top 6 guy, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
I think that Goodrow, people have seen that if you might have that missing piece for a cup, that Goodrow could be it. And those guys priced themselves out of the Lightning, and it was great. The Lightning mortgaged a couple of first-round picks and got those guys. I don't think Savard's going to be back whatsoever. He was just strictly a rental, but that's fine. They were able to get Bogosian last year off the waiver wire for free, that they had to give up an asset this year to get Savard. So I think those 3 guys aren't going to be back. I'm not surprised whatsoever. It would be hard for them to retain just a straight free agent. It's great that they got a 7th-round pick for Goodrow, because they essentially just traded his rights. I mean, he could sign somewhere else if he wanted to, but I would imagine a deal is probably somewhat in place for them to make that trade. So I'm not surprised at any of those guys. I'm not surprised about the list that came out of the guys that are protected. I had been hearing McDonough was going to get protected. I could go either way on it. I trust JBB. I think there's a lot of things that we don't even know is going on behind the scenes. So it's tough for me to go, oh, you should have put Killorn. You should have protected Killorn or Gourde. Like, I don't know. I trust JBB, and I think they're going to figure this out. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens. I will be devastated if Yanni Gourde is taken, though. I'm hoping that Seattle leaves him alone, but that would be something that would hurt me, and I think hurt the team. I feel like he's the heart and soul of the Lightning.
Yeah, and I think that's the general consensus among a lot of Lightning fans, that we really don't want to see Yanni go. He really took it. If you thought that, he capped out last season, I mean, this season proved that he could be an even bigger piece. And it seems, though, like there might be some hope on the horizon, because in some of the mock expansion drafts that I'm seeing around, and just some of the stuff that's circulating on Twitter, it looks like Seattle's sort of in love with Andre Palat, which, regardless, you're still getting a very good player.
Yeah, I read on Twitter last night from Matt Salmon. He said that if he were Seattle, he would take Palat, because if they wanted to compete, they could use Palat, and if they fell out of it, they could trade him because he's a free agent and get some assets back, which makes sense. And then he said that if he didn't take Palat, he would take Cal Foote, since defensemen are so hard to find. Now, I don't know what Seattle's going to do. They can do whatever they want. I don't think anybody knows. I don't think they're leaking it out. The mock drafts, I don't even read. Somebody had Chernak going in a mock draft. I was like, do you not even watch hockey to know that they would never give this guy up? So I'm not paying too much attention to those. I'm just going to wait and see. I think Cal Foote makes a lot of sense. I think Palat makes a lot of sense. If they wanted an instant captain, they could take Killorn. If they took a guy like Ross Colton or ABB or, Matthew Joseph, because they believe that these guys are going to be incredibly talented scorers, I could see that. So my hope is that they take somebody like Palat, and we can get the salary off the books and probably slide Cirelli up to that top line.
Yeah, that'd be great to see Cirelli jump up to that top line just because he had a tough go of it this year, and you could just see it at certain points of the season. He was just super frustrated trying to, and it seemed like at certain points he was just trying to just to do too much, and he really came into his own down the stretch, though. That really came in handy for the Lightning. So really, with the expansion draft, I don't think they're going to really go towards Killorn just because you don't know how he's going to be able to come back with an injury like the one he had. I think Palat, like you said, is probably more of a safer option just because you have someone that could score, and if you're in it, he could contribute a whole ton for you. So really, what is this team looking like next year? Where they obviously they chose to go pretty much to protect the defensive core. So where are we seeing with this team next season in terms of maybe their offensive output?
Man, it's really, I couldn't even tell you right now. I'm kind of preparing myself for almost like a mini overhaul of the roster. I think whatever Seattle does is not the end of the story for the Lightning. They're going to have to make trades. They're going to have to make moves. I think that something that's not talked about a lot, but the Lightning have going for them over anybody else is that this is now a destination, not only for the weather, but because this is a winning team. And if hockey's one of those, it's not like any other sport. When you're losing in hockey, it's the worst. People want to win a championship in hockey. Like, you could put up with some losing in baseball or football or whatever, but you're not putting up with losing in hockey. So they want to win a cup. So I think that we're going to see some big name veterans come here, play for cheap, like Pat Maroon did a couple of years ago. But yeah, I'm expecting Coleman, Savard, Gaudreau obviously is gone. Palat, I don't know what they do with Gord, and then maybe there's a surprise somewhere else where maybe they just move some pieces around. But I think it's definitely going to be maybe 5 or 6 new starters next year.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they really gel with each other going into training camp as well as the regular season. And when I had Jay Feaster on the show a couple of weeks ago, he told me that he did not envy JBB's job at all whatsoever going into this offseason, because we spoke about, this was a day or two right after they won the cup, and the parade was only a couple of days away. And Jay was telling me, JBB is probably enjoying it, but the wheels are already turning for him because he's like, how can I sustain this for next year? But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I kind of dangled the carrot out on Twitter a couple of days ago just to see what people would say. And a lot of people are starting to fall in love with the idea that if the Lightning could kind of campaign and convince Alexander Ovechkin to come here on a veterans minimum, how crazy would a scenario would that be down in Tampa if you could get the great 8 to suit up in blue and white?
Yeah, I was reading about Ovi last night, so I guess that's nice to think about. I don't even see what the Capitals, why they would let that happen at all.
Yeah,
but I'm interested to see what kind of deal he gets and how much cap space he eats up, because he deserves whatever he's going to get paid. So I don't know. That'd be. I can't even think about that. It would be too majestic. But yeah, I think they'd be asking a lot for Ovi to come take the veterans minimum to come play hockey down here.
well, because I'm sure, I guess the only way to kind of convince him to come down is like, well, you come down, you take the minimum, we build it, we fill in the pieces we need to do, and you get to play with Stamkos, Kucherov, Vasilevsky, and Sergachev, and you could kind of have like a little core Russian 4 championship squad here if they three-peat.
Yeah. Well, listen, if they're not able to recruit Ovi, I do know that the Russian connection is obviously strong here. And if people want to come play here and bond with those guys, they're 3 of the best in the world. So why not?
Yeah. And then the other name that some people were actually kind of excited about the prospect of bringing in was Vladimir Tarasenko. And now there's a little bit, obviously Vladimir is still very, very young, and he's probably going to want a lot of money coming here. So obviously, you're not going to convince a guy like that to take a minimum. But it's one I actually floated an idea to my listeners earlier on in the season when there was rumors floating out of Chicago that the Blackhawks were sellers, and I said, I don't care what it takes as long as we don't lose core guys. Let's go after Patrick Kane. Why not? Until Kucherov comes back, and that would have probably caused a bigger stream of noise coming out with the 18 million over the cap thing.
Yeah.
How hilarious was that? Because it seemed like before every game, the opposing fan base was like, well, you only won that because of, Kucherov being over 18 million over the cap and all that stuff. And it's funny to see things like that. And even Kucherov has embraced it now.
Yeah. I think that really, I mean, I guess you could be upset. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN said, your team sucks. Like your team doesn't have the talent stockpile that the Lightning do, that they can, go make the playoffs in this type of season without their best player or one of their best players. And then he comes back and he's full, he looks like he's full strength, and what? That's like our fault. Like, I'm not gonna say sorry for the talent that the Lightning have stockpiled over the years and the heartbreak that everybody through the organization and the fans have been through. So JBB has a great understanding of the rules. And if the NHL wants to look at that rule and change it, that's fine. But it was a fully legal thing. Everybody investigated it. And it just, I don't understand how money, translates the championship. So I don't think just because they're 18 million over, I don't think that means that they win the cup. A lot has to go into it. And I watched these guys play this year. But that's just,
that's just people. Yeah, exactly. And the Blackhawks won a championship like that. A lot of people don't remember that. And so, I guess,
against us.
Exactly. So it's one of those things that's funny. But Seth, thank you for doing this. This was great. We hope to have you on soon, maybe closer to once the season starts up. And crazy to see how the next.
I'd love to do it. Yeah. And if Yanni Igor gets taken, I'm going to need a support group. So maybe
we might
out through those tough times.
Absolutely. We might have to have a joint Lightning support group for Yanni leaving. So
man, thanks a lot.
Thanks to Seth coming on, taking time out of his certainly busy schedule to come on here and talk about Lightning hockey. We hope to have him on back soon, possibly in the coming months, probably definitely before the regular season starts up, probably around training camp. So we're gonna wrap things up. Well, not wrap things up. We're gonna wrap things up with a little conversation about the Lightning possibly reuniting with an old face of theirs, an old player, possibly in this offseason, as well as talk about the souvenir giveaway that we'll be having. But first, let's get to one of today's sponsors, the last one, and that is BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all your UFC, MMA action before the next pitch. Head on over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device. That's how easy it is. You could do this on your phone. Check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Head to the website or use your phone to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's a 50% welcome bonus when you sign up and you on your first deposit and use the promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And we're back to kind of wrap things up on the show today. So before we get into the conversation about the Lightning, reuniting with a new face or an old face, let's talk about the contest information, because that's probably all of you held on to this entire episode. So basically, our new giveaway will be a certified Vinny LeCavier Tampa Bay Lightning signed puck. The only way to be qualified and able to be in the running to get this will be you need to follow the Locked On Lightning Twitter account at @LO_Lightning, and you also need to follow me at DankyDank DENKYD8NK. That is DENKYD8NK. You got to follow both the accounts to be eligible to be in the whole raffle, and then we'll probably be doing this for a couple weeks or so. We'll definitely, I don't know why I can't get words out at the end of the show, but we'll definitely give you updates as to when we'll be wrapping things up. So definitely stay in contention for that. And the easiest way, the best way to do it as well, as when we put out the information too, you tweet someone, you retweet it, and you tag one of your friends in it, and then they could follow the show too. So that's kind of an entry for them as well as another entry for you. So keep that in mind as well. Yeah, super excited to do this giveaway. It was a great response when we did the Alex Killorn giveaway a couple of months back. So yeah, that's the souvenir giveaway for this off season, kind of a little contest. Can't wait to see the outcome that you guys, the outpouring of enthusiasm that you guys always bring. So to kind of wrap things up very briefly, and we'll talk about this a lot more on probably tomorrow or Thursday's episode. We're only down to 3 episodes now, but that doesn't mean we have to do 3 episodes because we're in off season. I would like to do as many as I want to. I think I'm going to do more than 3 a week. Try to shoot for that at least. So the Lightning have a lot of tough decisions to make. And obviously Barclay Goodrow's gone. I stated during the show, as well as my conversation with Seth, we both said the likelihood of Blake Coleman coming back is very slim to none. The Lightning just simply can't afford it, and it would be almost a disservice to Blake to ask him to take less money than for what he's valued at. That is I would say almost 5.5 AAV a year. Blake played his butt off the last couple of seasons and definitely deserves to get paid. Now, the Lightning have to fill in some spots here and there. Now, either, so with this, with the lines look like you would have, if Seattle were to take Palat, then you have an open wing space with Point and Kucherov on the first line. That second line is going to be Colton, Cirelli, and Stamkos. And then the third line, if Gord is taken away, if Gord is drafted, and then obviously with the recent trade of Barclay Goodrow and then Coleman not coming back, that third line forward position is completely open. And so I've been a big proponent on this show. I can't talk today, guys. I don't know what's with me. I've been a big advocate on this show for playing the youth guys, the young guys, Matthew Joseph, Ross Colton. I wouldn't feel comfortable moving Tyler Johnson up to that third spot to have a veteran on there. But what the Lightning can do, and we'll talk about this more, but I do want to throw this name out to you guys, is who's a unrestricted free agent? And I think we could talk him down to possibly, having a cap-friendly contract just for the sake of coming back and winning another cup. That is Cedric Paquette. Now, I know, you're jumping for joy. Cedric Paquette would be a great addition and a great signing to come back for the Lightning. He's a veteran. He knows the system of this team. He gets along well with all these guys. When he got traded, it was unfortunate to see him go. But if the Lightning could work out a deal, move around some money, which I know JBB can, and he has to, then Seti would be a great re-addition to the team, and he could slide in perfectly into that second line, bottom 6 forward position. So that's something that Lightning fans, as well as I hope the Lightning, have in the back of their minds, that's something that you have someone right there who already knows the system. He knows a lot of the guys already on the team, so that's something to think about. And we'll obviously talk about the logistics of that and the cap situation, and if that were able to come to fruition throughout the week. I don't think we're going to do a show tomorrow just because it's going to be too crazy with the expansion draft news, and then I guess we'll probably try and come back Thursday just because that would probably be a good thing just to kind of review what happened during expansion draft, and then we could talk about if Palat or Gord got selected, and then we could look forward towards the entry draft. So, and we'll definitely have a show on the entry draft day as well. The Lightning don't have a draft pick till the 3rd round, but I wouldn't be shocked if they make some trades here and there to possibly move up. I don't know how realistic it is right now, just because we have no idea what's going to happen in the expansion draft. We're talking here right now about possibly Palat or Gord. Most likely Palat's going to get selected, but who knows? Kraken could do something and totally turn this whole logic up on its head. So in the meantime, give the show a follow at L_Lightning on Twitter, LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. Give me a follow on Twitter once again to be eligible for the contest for the Vinny LeCavier autograph puck. So go ahead and do that. Both those things as well. Give me a follow. DankyDank, DENKYD8NK on Twitter. So that's been it for today's episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.